Welcome to the BuiltOnAir podcast, the variety show for all things Airtable. In each episode, we cover 4 different segments. It's always fresh and different, and lots of fun while you get the insider info on all things Airtable. Our hosts and guests are some of the most senior experts in the Airtable community. Join us live each week on our YouTube channel every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and join our active community at BuiltOnAir.com. Before we begin, a word from our sponsor, On2Air Backups. On2Air Backups provides automated Airtable backups to your cloud storage for secure and reliable data protection. Prevent data loss and set up a secure Airtable backup system with On2Air Backups at On2Air.com. As one customer, Sarah, said, having automated Airtable backups has freed up hours of my time every other week and the fear of losing anything. Longtime customer David states, On2Air Backups might be the most critical piece of the puzzle to guard against unforeseeable disaster. It's easy to set up, and it just works. Join Sarah, David, and hundreds more Airtable users like you to protect your Airtable data with On2Air Backups. Sign up today with promo code BuiltOnAir for a 10% discount. Check them out at On2Air.com. And now let's check out today's episode and see what we built on air.
Welcome to the Built on Air podcast. We are in episode 2 of season 19. Good to be back with everybody. We've got the crew together, Alli, Camille, and special guest Max. Welcome, Max.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. Max was on the show a few months ago talking about the Super Bowl and whatnot. So Max has got some cool stuff to share with us today. Later in the show, I'll walk us through what we're going to be talking about. We always start with our Round the Bases to keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of Airtable, all the communities, discussion. Then a shout out to On2Air Backups Solution, our primary sponsor. Then Max is going to showcase his base that he built for record labels. And then Alli is going to walk through the new sorting records action within automations. And then a quick shout out to join our community. And then finally, public sharing of interfaces with Camille. Exciting to see all that we've got coming up. But first on our Round the Bases, a couple things to talk about. No new functionality or features. The public share, did we talk about that on the show or was that this week?
No, it's not a new update. I think it happened while we were on break.
Okay.
Yeah. I noticed it briefly, really quickly under one account as I was doing something. And I was like, wait a second. And then I never went back to it. So I'm excited to see Camille dig into it.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't think it's live for everyone yet. I think it's still being rolled out. Is that correct?
I think.
It might be, and I know it's not available on the free plan, so.
That makes sense. Okay. So that might be something new. I think people started to notice it recently. So that was maybe the only new thing. We didn't see any other announcements on new features. So just kind of poking around, see what people are talking about. This isn't new. Looks like it was last updated in April, but it kind of caught our attention. If you're an enterprise user, they have an Ask an Expert, and I think it's with internal Airtable staff, but something to highlight if you're an enterprise user. They do have this Ask an Expert. You can sign up for a session and be able to ask them just general questions, not like emergency type stuff, but something of interest. I'd be curious to hear if people that use this, what the feedback is.
They refer to it as Ask an Expert and Ask and Expert. And if you like to scroll through this page, there's an extra G on some of these.
One of those is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, right here. How long are asked?
It's like it alternates like every other mention.
Yep. And then there it's right. So maybe you can ask and there's an expert there.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Here's a good thread on X. I always like to see people building in real life. Here's a couple just tweets of going through how to build a fantasy story using OpenAI assistant in Airtable, and looks like they're using Make as well to build this. So couple different tweets going through all the different steps. So good kind of live tutorial. If you want to follow that, we'll link to it.
My big takeaway from this thread is how he's using vertical video to show Airtable or whatever, like low code demos, because that's been something that I could not figure out, but here we go. And now I'm going to study it.
There you go.
It's the kids and their TikToks and their YouTube shorts.
Yeah. I think he might have a full YouTube video. I didn't see a link anywhere. But yeah, there's a pretty intense Make scenario.
I mean,
all right. Next one from our BuiltOnAir community. Shout out last week's show. Silver Taza was on the show, and looks like he's been busy since then. He didn't even talk about this, but he launched a new extension since he was on the show. So since he didn't talk about it, I thought we'd highlight data extraction. If you need to extract the data out of Airtable in a different format, looks like you can even export it as SQL queries. That's kind of cool. So yeah, so kind of a cool tool. Looks like it's now in the marketplace, so you could check that out. And support Silva as well, Silver. Also another one, Data Fetcher, Andy from Data Fetcher, always producing new ways to use Data Fetcher. So this one extracts information from your attachments, which is kind of cool because once you extract the meta information, it looks like he's also working on being able to like push that to OpenAI, so you can extract like the text from a PDF attachment and then push it into the OpenAI and do stuff with your attachment data. So that's interesting.
That is pretty cool.
All right. Looks like Max has some supporters here. Welcome, Ben, Mike, and John.
Yeah, shout out Mike. If I was connected to the chat, I would type into it. But thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming, and John as well.
Yeah. Okay, next one. If you are interested in getting into scripting, here's a good tutorial we found about it from simplescraper.io. And so it walks you through all the steps of getting started with Airtable scripting. Pretty detailed process that walks you through it. So I highly recommend using scripting. It's a pretty regular part of what I do. Comes in handy quite a bit if you're even familiar with the basics of it. Can come in handy.
It does. And there's a lot of nuance in between automation scripts and the scripting extension, even though they're very similar. There's just some things that you can't do in an automation, and there's some things that you can't do in the scripting extension. So to me, it doesn't super matter which one you start with to learn, but when you're ready to learn the other one, be prepared to be confused.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Next one. I always like to see when there's questions that like we haven't seen in the years that we've been doing this. There's a question on the community. I don't think we've seen anybody asking how you can fax inside of Airtable. Unfortunately, there wasn't an answer.
Interesting.
I assume there's a third-party API that does faxing. I have not faxed in a while.
When I worked for my family's business, we still used a fax machine all the time, and I was amazed. But I actually loved it. It was nice to like send off little forms to other companies and like not even have to bother with an email. You just put it in the machine and then it comes back and you're like, wow, it's crazy. But no, I don't know of any third-party tools.
There's efax.com. I think I've seen that. So I'm sure there's APIs out there, so you could connect it with Zapier or Make. So that would probably be the answer, Jacob. If you're watching, you definitely can't do it directly from Airtable. That'd be funny if they added an automation for faxing.
Right?
No, I don't see that on their roadmap anytime soon. But definitely, I'm sure there's a solution out there that is connected to Make or Zapier that will help you out.
I'm sure.
Yep. Next one. Okay, always talking about competitors. I don't know if you guys saw Slack is like moving into the world of project management, and looks kind of similar to Airtable. Got some similarities there. It looks like you can group by and some kind of table format. I haven't played with it yet.
It feels like Notion to me. It just looks a little closer to the way Notion kind of designs their UI a little bit. Where in Slack would this go?
I think you probably have to enable it. I saw like an alert on mine that it now has like project management, but I haven't played with it. I don't know if I do my project management in Slack.
Yeah, I haven't played with it either. It's under more if you're like on your like home screen. There's 3 little dots and you can go to more. Oh, they have automations too. I didn't know that. Crazy.
It feels like Asana a little bit, because Asana has like the threaded chat conversations for the projects and tasks. So now Slack, which is the king of the threaded conversations, now has the projects and the tasks.
Yeah.
Can you comment on them? Like, can you like have conversations related to a task? I would assume so.
Yeah. No, gotta be.
It's interesting with Slack being owned by Salesforce. I wonder if Salesforce is basically using Slack to become like their project management solution. That would be interesting.
I don't know. I like Slack for quick communication.
Yeah.
I
the
can't
thing that's
see
hard
myself
about Slack is like just finding like where was that mention of, and so that's why I would be hesitant to put more data into Slack.
And things, well, I guess it depends on what plan you're on, but like conversations expire after a certain amount of time, and I'm wondering what are the limitations on the project management front? Like, do records expire depending on what plan you're on? Because that's not great.
No.
Yeah, I don't know how they handle that. Okay, next one. This was pretty interesting. We saw this on X, but went to the article here. So this pin company analyzes kind of, like you've heard of like the PayPal mafia of all the founders that have come out of the original PayPal group. They track companies that and the employees that leave and go start new companies. So I never knew about the Airtable mafia, but it looks like they're tracking all the people that used to work at Airtable and have left to start other companies. None that I was familiar with, but still early. So kind of interesting to think about the Airtable mafia. Going back to Salesforce, John asks, curious who Salesforce will buy in the no-code, low-code space. Maybe they'll buy Airtable. Possibly. They're a big investor already in Airtable, so they're already vested in Airtable's success.
What's Airtable built out of? Is it Salesforce? Did I make that up?
No, it's not built.
I think Red Hat is. I want to say it's
okay.
It's some big. I believe it starts with. I think it's Red Hat.
Yeah, for the database, I think they said all their databases were MySQL databases.
That feels right.
Yeah, and so they probably have. If every base is its own MySQL database, they've got to have so many MySQL instances running. Just kind of crazy.
Now, do we want Salesforce to buy Airtable?
No.
No. No, we do not.
Mm.
No. Hopefully Airtable has enough legs to go public and stay independent. So, all right, next one.
Shane says no.
No. Yeah, Shane says no. Okay, next one. Airtable AI, just talking about, looks like July 15th is the date where AI will be turned on for team and free plan workspaces. So then workspace owners can disable or enable AI through the workspace settings. So, so has team not had AI? You had to request it to this point?
I think so.
Gotcha.
So
And on
what I'm not clear on is if it's turned on automatically. I mean, obviously not for the free plan, but would they, like that $6 extra a seat a month, is that still a thing, or are they waiving that?
for the free, I wonder if they give you just a few tokens.
And what about for team? Like, would they, like, there's nothing on here about how this will affect billing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it should be off by default for everyone with a little badge or something on July 15th that says, hey, you now have access to AI. Turn it on if you want. Click on that page and it'll tell you how much more your
I think that's how it works. That's what I've seen is in the chat, it'll pop up and say, do you want to enable AI? So maybe on the team and the free, it hasn't been enabled. So it hasn't been nudging to upgrade.
Okay. Because I'm reading Airtable AI will remain turned off by default for business and enterprise scale. And I was reading that as like, the reverse being true for free and team because they weren't included. Yeah. But the full sentence talks about it being enabled at the admin panel level, because if you want no AI for your organization, you could turn it off globally. That's not a thing for teams and free. So maybe it is off by default at the workspace level for those two plans, and you could turn it on. That would be my preference, just because there's presumably an added cost.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
All right, moving on to Facebook community. This is one about maps and trying to find a solution for determining a radius around a point from a data point in Airtable. Kind of trying to find something like this, like a Venn diagram. Let's see here if there's an answer. I have not played much with. There is an extension for Google Maps.
It wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
No.
I've done a lot with the Google Maps API, but it's mostly to determine distances between two or more points and figuring out which is the closest of those several points, but not to draw geometry onto a map. I do know that there's specific API endpoints to get a picture of a map. So you could define a center point and the zoom and whatnot. So you could like attach it to an Airtable record. I'm unsure of exactly what you would need to do in order to add the markers and the geometry around it. I'm pretty sure you could do it. I have no idea how, but I think that's all possible within the API. And then it would be something like you set up an automation if you want to stay in Airtable and not use Make or something. Set up an automation to trigger whenever it needs to pass certain information about your record to the API. It does whatever it needs to do, and then it would like output an image. Now, hopefully the image is a URL, because that's what you need to pass into an Airtable attachment field. If not, then I don't know what you do with that output, but that I think is the general workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had an image, just to the image point. I can't remember what the app was called. I think it was called ShipStation, and it was giving me back a a PDF of a shipping label, but it was in base 64 encoded. Like it wasn't the actual URL. I needed to and I couldn't, it was too long to put that string into a field because it surpassed the character limit. So I needed to find another app that I could send that string to the API and get back a URL. And it was just a total mess, but it worked using BuiltOnAir. That was a good one. So
cool.
But I'm sure you could do it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. So that's an interesting use case. One more from the Facebook community. Just a good reminder, can you confirm if data is hosted in the US? Some people said it is, but then Josh clarifies you can get it in Europe. So I know they do have European servers now. So I think those are the only two I've heard of. I don't know if they host anywhere else.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any other data centers.
Yeah. So, all right, one more. Let's end with Chris Dancy, friend of the show. He's highlighting a client that he worked with. They needed a site registration system and video within 6 hours. And he says he did it all with Airtable AI to pull it off. So pretty cool. And on that note, a final reminder, I believe 1 week left for signing up with the early bird discount to Daretable. So price of $450 before it goes up. And I believe to $650 next week. So this is the last week if you're planning to go. I believe all 4 of us will be there. So that will be great if you want to meet us. Join us at Airtable. We're all going to be crashing on Max's floor. He already invited everybody. Any listener to BuiltOnAir?
Let's go.
See, and we thought we would have to crash a Julian post, but no, Max, you volunteered first.
That works. Awesome. That concludes our Around the Bases. And keeping you up to date. Next, if you are running your business in Airtable, best practice is to make sure your data is backed up, stored externally outside of Airtable. And that's where OntoAir comes in. We help back up your data, your attachments, also your meta schema information into Box, Dropbox, or Google Drive, and make sure your information is secure there. Like I mentioned last week, restore functionality is in Q&A and coming out in the coming weeks. So excited for that. Sneak peek there. So if you need backups, use code BuiltOnAir for a discount. Sign up on ontoair.com. With that, Max, if you want to share your screen and tell us a little bit about yourself, a reminder of who you are, kind of what you do, and then we can jump into your base.
All right. Okay, so I come from the music business. I still work in the music business. And around 2019, 2020, I decided to look for alternatives to the types of systems that we in the business were accustomed to using. And the music business is more data intensive than even insiders think it is. And it's also, in my experience, the most deadline intensive industry ever. Because they have new batches of deadlines every Friday, and all week you're just working towards those, and you have to have some time left over to market the kind of existing releases that are out, and it becomes quite chaotic. So a properly structured database system is absolutely crucial. I set out to figure out what the solution was. Very quickly, I found Ben Green on YouTube. So shout out Ben Green. Everything you're about to see, everything you've ever seen me put out on YouTube, or anything that if you've ever interacted with me as a client, it all comes from Ben Green. So he taught me everything I know. So big shout out to Ben. Check him out, Optimize IS. And let's just get right into this demo. So if you followed me on LinkedIn, you've seen that there's I've been basically trying to educate anybody who will listen about an alternative to using spreadsheets to run their record label. And the only way that I know how to do that is by creating videos, because Airtable or just like databases in general can't really be explained, I don't think, in words or spoken word. They needed to be kind of demonstrated. So I started this YouTube series, and we're in the 5th episode. And what you're seeing here is essentially a somewhat finished product of those 5 episodes. I expect there will be future episodes to come where we'll build other tools. But we're basically creating the relationships between artists and labels and releases and budgets. And if you go down the line here, right? Just a quick tour of the data layer here. Now we're going to automations. There's a handful of automations that you're going to see play out in the demo. And then I even have a couple record templates that you're going to see demonstrated as well. So let's get right into the interface. And if you're a client of mine, this is, more or less generally the type of thing that's how your Airtable looks. So you're going to have your main section here where you can keep your release schedule and you can keep your artists. Now, in the music business, it's very important that we look at releases in a cluster of weeks. So if it's being released between Monday and Friday, this week, for instance, it's all considered part of like this cluster. So in order to do that, we had to have a formula. I'll show it to you in the releases table. Let me find it real quick. It's called week, I believe, which basically says, take the release date and tell me what week it's part of using the Saturday to Friday as the week, which is not the standard way that the week number operator does it for you. So with that, you're able to then use Airtable's hierarchy and establish this list view with the weeks in a separate kind of, call it parent table. Each of these releases has a detail screen. Let me try to find one that's a little bit more conducive. I think this one might be it. And we have top line information about each release, what artist is putting it out, the title, the dates, the format, the status of the release, etc., who the responsible players are in the company, which is all lookups or roll-ups from linked records. And then we have basically, all of the release data, like what tracks are part of this album. We'll get to the clearance process progress bar in a second. Budget is a system we're going to go through. So what you're looking at is, senior management will set budgets for marketing. A&R are like the people in the music industry who discover the new talent, they sign the artists, and then they help those artists release the best music possible. And then, digital for digital marketing, and then total, right? So somewhere else in the base, a director level person will set these budgets for the project. And then people in the company, whatever role they serve, will add budget line items as needed to the extent that they're spending money on out-of-home advertising or digital advertising or producer fees or studio time. They just put it in the same way they would in their spreadsheet, but they put it into Airtable, and it allows, based on the fact that it's structured properly, the information to get rolled up to compare directly against marketing budget. Now, you might think if you're in another industry that this is kind of, table stakes, but you'd be surprised. Like the music industry is, if you work inside a company that's part of a major label, there's a lot of red tape and there is a lot of opportunity for this type of simple data and information to get lost behind 1 or 2 or 3 layers of kind of teamwork. And the fact that you're able to have it displayed for you in an interface is, I think, really valuable, because you can say to yourself, well, I have this very timely marketing campaign or idea that I want to execute. Do I even have the budget to do so? Normally, it might take 24, 48 hours to get the information. Here you are, you've got it kind of at your fingertips that the answer is yes. You do have the information to choose to go run it. So we'll get to how these budget line items get added in a minute. We'll also get to how the tracks and the clearance progress gets added. But this is just another alternative way to display that information. Artists, this is like your roster list, utilizing a list view with tabs. So if you wanted to sort your roster by all hip hop artists, you could do so. If you wanted to say hip hop only in the USA, you can do that as well. This becomes super easy and valuable versus having to open up another Google Sheet. You click in, you've got your detail screen for your artist. Mission statement is a long text field. Working documents are PDFs. You can add team members here quickly if you want. So now we've got a second product manager here, a third product manager, Felicia Cook, and you can say that information adjusts on the list view as well. Okay. Streaming is... The streaming department are the people who liaise with like Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or things like that. And if you run the department, every single week, you have to take the releases that are part of that cluster, come up with something, you know, engaging about that release and the artist to get the attention of the editorial people at these companies so that they will feel compelled to put your song when it comes out into any number of playlists. And some of these playlists can make or break artists. So it's a very important role within a record label. And prior to Airtable, I've never really seen somebody accomplish that goal, right? Sending their pitch, call it emails, or interacting with pitch portals or something like that, programmatically. It's very manual. It's very laborious. It's very time consuming. And if you're the head of the department with 25 years experience, you're not too thrilled every week about having to kind of spend an entire day sometimes just organizing the data. So we did it for them. So if you're the kind of like mid-level manager level person, this is what you've got. The same set of releases clustered in a record review screen. So here are the 6 releases. You come in here and you can put the information that matters to you. You can write the pitch. And most importantly, because we're kind of like able to roll up information through the artist table from releases and then back to this release, we're able to see all of the pitches that were sent in the past for any song or project by the same artist. So here's an example of past pitch summary. Let's go down and see if we can get it. This one doesn't have it. This one doesn't have it. Here we go. Alfred Stark. We've released 4 projects for this person already. And if you're crafting this pitch and you're typing it in, now at your fingertips, you can say, well, what did I say in February when we put out the single, or in whatever, November? You can see them all in order directly below you. And that's super valuable for this type of role. Now, if you're the director level person, you can come in here and create like a pitch message. And we're going to do it here live. So we're going to say, we're going to send a DSP pitch email today, and I'm going to create it. You hit create. Now there's an automation that runs in the background that says, go find tell me what week cluster this date is. So the date of this email is. Go find all of the releases that are in the same week cluster, right? So these are the 6 releases we just saw. And then add them as linked records in a child table to this pitch email. So now you can come in here and open these up, and you can say, okay, what did my manager level person write about this song? Did they say things that, you know, that were correct? Do I want to add something in here, whatever? And then you can see how they all display down below. And this is kind of like a preview of what the email is going to look like. If you want to say something like, look out for these artists on late night TV, remember to let us know this or that. And then say like, here's one more thing I want to say. Boom. All this information goes into the automation and gets sent out in the email. Now we want to attach some recipients. If this weren't a demo, I would have all the recipients for all the emails that you want to send programmed into Airtable, so that this thing would iterate through them all, and it would send out your 30 or 40 emails per week, and each one would be addressed to the right people depending on which, call it, partner you're sending it to, Spotify, Apple, TikTok, whatever it may be. But in this case, we're going to add a person here. So we'll call this person Dan Fellers, and I think it's Dan at inair.studio. And we're going to create. So now it's Max and Dan will get this email. You click this button. One more thing before I do it. These emails can be customized to no end using HTML. And the way that I demonstrate this for clients is I have this one button here. So if this is clicked, you'll see in the email that the line or the top line of it comes out kind of highlighted yellow. Shout out Camille, if you might remember 6 or 9 months ago, you helped me with that in the
Oh, yay! It worked.
Exactly, it worked, right? So, and it also opened up so much. It's like we don't just need to highlight things yellow. We could do anything we want. I've had clients who wanted like the email to have a black background, and they wanted an HTML design button that when they get clicked, something happened. Like all this stuff is possible thanks to a little HTML. So I'm going to hit send. Now in the background, automation's running. It's sending. You'll see in a minute, this status will update to sent, and then the timestamp will come here. There you go. Now it's been sent. And if you look at your email, you'll see it. And there you go. Your work is done instead of taking, most of Monday and Tuesday to kind of get that done. Next, finance. We'll start at the budget surveillance. So if you're the director level person, you can kind of come into here under any artist and click down and open up their projects, and then click down and see what budget line items have been applied to those products. And you can also set, remember, this is where you set the budget. So if I'm setting the budget for Alfred Stark Grinding for Success, and I want to say, all right, let's increase the budget to 20,000. Then if you were to come back into the releases, Alfred Stark Grinding for Success, you now see that the marketing budget's 20, and this is what the whole company sees without having to communicate, text, meet, Slack, any of that stuff. Information is just displayed in many ways, but it only exists in one place. Now, if you are on the front lines and you're kind of keeping your budgets, you've got a thing called Budget Tracker. This is where you can click into Alfred Stark Grinding for Success, see that main information, and then you've got a little graphical representation of how you're spending your money. And if you wanted to, you could just add a item here. So let's say there's a photo shoot and we need, artist styling before XYZ shoot, and we're spending $5,500 on it. You hit create, and then it knows that the artist styling is a publicity expense, and then publicity expense rolls up here. So now look, we've spent $9,800 on publicity. We've only been budgeted $3,000, so we have some explaining to do. That is simple. I mean, at least as simple as keeping your own spreadsheet, but obviously infinitely more powerful. And then before I get to what I think is the best feature of all of this, I just want to just breeze by the dashboard screen so you can very easily add as many elements as you want on top of the data that your team is already inputting, and display it in a chart, in a graph, or in a pivot table like this, where you're looking at artist expenditures by, in this case, month. And you can very quickly see, who's spending the most, who's spending the least. Lastly, we'll just do the A&R admin. So these are the people who make sure that the releases have all of the agreements that are required in order to get released. As you might imagine, if you release a song that you haven't, you don't have a signed agreement with, say, the producer, or at least an agreement, terms in writing between the attorneys, then that song could blow up, become number one, and the producer kind of has a lot of leverage over you at that point. So it's very important that there's somebody at the company, project managing the relationship between a project, the tracks, and then if you click into tracks, all of the different roles of people who participated in the creation of that track. In this case, producer, mixer, mastering, main artist. You can add co-writer if you want. So in this case, we'll add a co-writer. and we'll say that that person is Michael Brown, and they're going to get a publishing split of 20%. Now watch this clearance progress bar for a second, right? So it's telling you how much percent of the publishing has been allocated. It says very clearly that we have 20% left. So if I put 20 in here, because we're giving 20 to a songwriter, you'll see that it didn't work, and that's okay. I'm going to figure out why it didn't work, but that would go to 100. You'd be able to manage the clearance status to say where you are. Oh, I'm sorry. This was where I was looking, total pub split. So let's make that 40. And now you see it says, boom, 100. The clearance progress is based on where your agreements are. So if I say that's fully executed, now the 2 agreements that require execution or signature have been fully executed, and therefore we can feel comfortable that we're ready to go. This label copy piece is very important. It tells you, or tells anybody who wants to license your song in the future, where they have to go to get all the rights from the people who are part of the track. And this piece of information here is stored at the contact level. And then this piece of information over here is stored at the roles level. And if I were to say that all of a sudden Jason Ford gets 5%, well, that's not going to be a good one. Let's take this away. If I say that this co-writer no longer exists, you see it kind of comes out. So to the extent that you have publishing on the record, you show up in the label copy, and someone can come here and copy and paste this real quick. I want to show you how to add a sample. So songs sample other songs all the time. I'm going to click a button. It's going to happen for us as part of the demo. Of course, you might have to do this manually in the future. But now all of a sudden, this record is sampling a very famous song called Amen Brother by the Winstons. And there are 3 stakeholders of that sample. There's a master rights owner, that's the label. Then there's 2 people who wrote the song who are different publishers. It tells you how much you paid, the royalty, the publishing split, and you also have your own little mini project management tool for this specific thing. And if you adjust this publishing, it rolls up to the total publishing. So you can see somewhere there's something wrong because you can only allocate 100% of the publishing, and we're over. Total cost, you can see very clearly to put out this song was $55,000. And you can very easily manage toward your budget that way. So there's another couple tools in here. I'm going to leave it there, but you can see already, even if you don't understand the music business all that well, it's tremendously data intensive. And without the proper systems, all of this stuff can get lost. And the way that it manifests itself currently inside of large organizations is a lot of text threads, a lot of Slack, a lot of internal email, a lot of they call breakout meetings. And these types of things become super bothersome. And in my opinion, at least my experience, this had been considered a cost of doing business in the industry because it's obviously a desirable, fun place to be. And so what if it's chaotic? We're just going to have to deal with it. And now, honestly, if you kind of come in and adopt Airtable for systems very quickly for a very reasonable amount of money, you can have your cake and eat it too. And that's it.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Maybe time for a question. Yep. So what? So there really isn't like an industry specific solution that people use for this?
No, absolutely not. No. And I'll tell you why. So there are people who have taken the SaaS product angle on all this stuff, and they're like, oh, this is like your record label management system, and it helps you create ticket requests, and it helps you all these things. They're trying to sell to people who have been in the business for 25 years. And these people have their own way that they do their business. And if you come in as like a SaaS product, you're like, okay, well, we can't do it that way. All you need to do is just change the way you do things and it'll be fine. And they'll never do it. And it just feels like if your company adopts the system, they're just forcing it down your throat instead of, in this case, I've built half a dozen ticket request systems for clients. Now, these are people who need to track, who they're buying tickets for to bring partners out to shows for their artists. Every single one of those tools is different, but they all accomplish the same thing. And because we're using Airtable, we're allowed to customize it infinitely and indefinitely.
Cool. So if you're a record label, where can people find you, Max?
Sure. So the website is relational.co. So relational with no A at the end, relationl.co, and click out from there. And I think that I recommend that you click on the YouTube link on the website and go watch the series that I've been putting out, which basically shows you how to build what you just saw from scratch. We start with a blank Airtable base, and in 5 episodes, we basically get to where you were. And I think it's super empowering, right? If you want to learn Airtable, I'm literally giving away the information.
Yeah, very cool. That is perfect. Let's continue. Awesome. Thank you, Max, for sharing that. We're going to move on to Alli and sorting records.
Awesome. And also, Max, that was so cool. Those interfaces are super clean. Very, very impressed. I really like that. Of course. All right. Okay. So this is a new feature that happened while we were on our break, and I'm very excited about it. There's a couple caveats that I'll touch on, but basically we've had 2 improvements to automations that will help when you're sending emails such as like weekly or daily digests. These will greatly improve the flexibility of what you can do with an automation. So this is an automation I actually have set up on the show once upon a time, very long time ago. And now we can improve it with our new features. So this database is basically a list of vehicles that are owned by a company. They've got vehicles at different locations, field location each vehicle is at. And we've got, year, make, model, etc. And then each one of these locations is linked up to what we've called an audit group. So if you're in the K Burr audit group, you're going to get the locations of, let me unhide this field. Well, it's being very slow, but it will have 2 locations underneath it. And so I want to be able to, on a weekly basis, for example, go loop through this list of audit sets and send an email for all of the vehicles that are linked to either one of these locations here. So previously, we could have a automation run, and the first thing it does is it's triggered on every week at 12 o'clock on Monday. And then it goes and it finds all of the audit group records that we want to send emails to. And I just have that searching based on a view because some of the audit groups have been deprecated or retired. And so it's basically like, okay, where's the list of all the emails we need to send emails to for this week? So it finds all of those audit groups. And then we have a repeating group. And within that, it's just looping over this list. So it repeats these steps 1 time for each audit group. And the first thing it does is it goes and it finds the company vehicles where the audit rep is matching the audit rep that we're currently on in the list that we're looping through. And then it just puts all of those company vehicles into a table that it can be sent out to that specific audit representative. Now, the downsides with how this works is that previously we had a maximum record limit of 100. This box was not even there. You could only find 100 records at a time. So if we had more than 100 vehicles, then we're kind of out of luck. We wouldn't be able to send every single vehicle on that list. So the first improvement is that we can now increase this to up to 1,000 records that can be found, which is wonderful. I highly doubt we're going to have 1,000 vehicles at a location, but who knows? There could be, you know, big companies out there that have got a lot of vehicles they need to track. And so now we can find up to 1,000. And that is wonderful. Let me run this test really quickly and we can just look at the preview. And when we look at the preview, we will notice one thing that has been a sore spot since this was actually a release. It's moving really, really slow for me right now. But the thing that's missing is that there was no way to sort the records that you find when you're using the based on a condition search function. If you're using based on a view, which is the other option here, the upsides to that are that you will retain the sorting and the grouping. If you want to retain the grouping, you can, of the view that you're looking for. However, in this scenario, we want to, we don't want to look at one view every time we run this loop. We need to conditionally find the correct vehicles because we're looping through a list of different representatives and we need to find the vehicles specific to that representative. So we couldn't use based on a view. We have to use based on a condition. And unfortunately, when it finds those records and puts them into this grid here, it just kind of goes with whatever order, I believe it's whatever order the records were actually created in. So if you notice here, these stock numbers, we've got 196, then 310, then 193, 308. There's just no rhyme or reason to the order in which they appear. And that can be really frustrating for the people that are getting this email. It's not easy to follow. We want to be able to have that sorted in whatever way we want it to be sorted. And then it'll look a lot easier for the recipient. So in order to do that, we have a new action called sort list, and we can insert that after the find record step within this repeating group. And it has to be after the find record step because it requires the result from a find record step to be able to run. So I can select my input list and I'm going to go with our find record step from within this repeating group. So it's the result from this step here. And I'm going to click use as list. And now here are our options. We can define a sort order. So I'm going to go with ascending. We could do, A to Z or Z to A. And then we can select one or more sort fields. So for my email here, I want to sort first by the location because there might be, interesting. I haven't actually played with this a ton. So that you can only use certain field types. You can't use lookups, and I don't believe you can use linked record fields either. Maybe you can actually. Let's go with that. Nope, you can't. So one caveat there, you have to use certain field types in order to sort. But that's okay for the sake of time. I'm going to just go with the stock number because I'd say that's probably the most important field. But if we did want to sort by multiple fields, you just need to keep in mind that what you're sorting by is all going to go in ascending order. So you couldn't sort by one field in a descending order and then by a second field in an ascending order. It's all going to be in the same direction. So when I say I want to sort by the stock number in ascending order and I test this, now it just tells me it's done. It doesn't come up with a preview or anything. So the only thing I need to do now is switch out this token in my email step. And this is actually, I was very pleasantly surprised by how easy this was. If you go to edit that token, you can see right now it's still coming from the find record step, but I want to switch that so that it's coming from the sort list step, because if I leave it at find records, I'm not actually using the output from my sort list at all. So if I flip this to sort list and I want to continue inserting it as a grid, this is what I was pleasantly surprised about. It still has all the right fields checked off. Like it knows that I had already turned those on and I don't need to go back and rebuild the fields that I've chosen here. And then I can just say update and look at the preview. And then we'll see that all of our stock numbers are nicely sorted in ascending order, with the lowest at the top and the highest at the bottom, which is super exciting. Another thing to note that is a bit of a caveat is because it requires the input of a find record steps output to run. If you wanted to, like, say, get the top 100 of any list, for example, like sort all of your records and give me the top 100, that's not going to be possible because you can only find up to 1,000 records. So if you have more than 1,000 records, you need to find those 1,000 and it'll only sort those 1,000. So you can't sort beforehand, if that makes sense. But still very excited about this. It's going to be really helpful for formatting these emails in a nice, legible manner.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
It's one of like the half a dozen
Of
things
course.
that you scratch your head and you're like, why doesn't Airtable do this? So I'm
Half
glad
a
to see
dozen?
it take it off the list.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I'm really excited about that. Previously, I had a script that would have to run and like do all this crazy sorting in the linked record field, and that I hope the next thing they do is sort the linked record, like as a field configuration. That would be wonderful.
Cool. Thank you, Alli, for sharing that. Very useful tool. Quick shout out, join our community. Amazing people in our community. Thousands of Airtable fans and users are all there congregating. So join us, builtonair.com/join. And let's finish with Camille and public sharing of interfaces.
Hello. This is one of those features I think that was released while we were on break. It is the ability to share a specific interface page publicly. This doesn't share a whole interface group. So in this, it's actually, I think the under the hood term for this is a bundle. In this bundle, I have two different pages. Only one of them can be shared publicly at a time. Or I should say, you publish each of them individually. Right now, we're looking at one of Airtable's blank layouts. It's the oldest layout that Interface has. It is incompatible with publishing publicly. I do just want to go over how I thought I would use this feature and then some of the things that you can't do based on some of the limitations that sharing publicly has. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is identified in the support article. It's under the generic managing and sharing interfaces page. And then there is a full section on sharing publicly. But what I thought I was going to do was have the two different like halves of my personality that, more information on this page, but then being able to click into one of two halves of the stuff that I do, click into low code engineer, ignoring this comment section that I forgot to turn off, but I would be able to have like a mini resume up at the top, and then underneath the different, under low code engineer, I offer two different services, and then being able to click on that and see the projects that I want to demonstrate for each of those. So that's what I wanted to do, but you can't. So of the things that are not possible, and there's kind of a lot or more than I was expecting, blank layouts are not compatible with sharing publicly. Record review layouts are not compatible. So this is a record review layout. This is the oldest. This is the older version. This is the newer version of that same record review layout. Neither of them are compatible. But generally speaking, the like full page list or grid or calendar, etc., those are compatible. So I was like, all right, well, I'll skip. And then here's all of my services. And then let's click on Airtable development again. And then you get to that same page. However, there's still a bit more caveats there. So if I go into edit mode, you'll see that I'm handily reminded that this one I'm currently looking at is shared publicly. And then if you look at the pages side panel, you can see this icon that's letting you know that it is shared publicly. So if I open up the shared link, you'll notice some things that are a little bit different. When you click into any of these tools, I can see I have 5 projects that are linked to this particular service, but I don't see, if I go back to preview mode, I'm supposed to see them as a gallery view, right? You can't show linked records as visualizations in this mode. And then you can't, if I had enabled click on this linked record to show me more information, you can't have nested options. So the page you land on is the thing that you can click on, and anything else that comes up is sort of interactable. Also, if I wanted this to be a full page detail page instead of a side sheet, it would always render as a side sheet. When shared publicly, I'm unsure why that was the decision, but it is. And then obviously you'll notice the top bar up at the top is pretty consistent with Airtable's other shared view link and share base link things, where it adds the Airtable sort of branding up at the top. I am on the business level plan. I have not seen a place to turn this off. So I just want to throw that out there. But if you needed the ability to like publish a page where someone could see very high level information at this level, and then not any detail about any linked records related to that, I could see it being useful, but at this stage, I can't foresee myself using it for much.
What happens if you click that view data button?
Yeah. That happens.
Okay.
Not
if
great.
you're not logged in, if you click open app, does it like prompt them to request access? Like if you weren't logged in?
Let's see. Hold on. I am logged in. So that it just takes you directly to the interface. So if I weren't logged in, it would be like, please log into Airtable. And then if I don't have access to that, to the actual whole interface, remember when you're sharing an interface, normally you're sharing the bundle itself, not individual pages. So it's a little odd to me that pages being shared individually, whereas the bundle being shared holistically. There's a lot of like nuance into how this plays with regular sharing. I can only really see this being used as like high level information summaries at the moment. And what was that?
For internal sharing almost.
Yeah, but even still, it's not, you can't get much information out of it is the thing. I would really want to be able to look at least see the projects, if not click on them to see more information about each of these. You didn't even get this view. It just says projects.
I think that if they're going to continue on trying to maximize for licensing sales, then they're going to keep it the way it is. Because this is like, oh, I'm going to share it with someone at my company who doesn't have a license to Airtable yet. And then they're going to get that button and it's going to say, oh, just contact somebody to get a license to Airtable. But if they're going to go after like the Notion market and say, hey, I don't want Notion to compete with us. I don't want anybody using Notion. We're going to provide everything we currently do, plus everything that they do. Then they'll do it the way you do. You want it, and I want it also. And I hope they go that way, but I don't know if they will.
I completely agree. They don't necessarily want people to use this feature to circumvent having a license for Airtable. And it should go without saying this is non-editable. So if this were a grid instead of a gallery, and I had turned on being able to edit records in line, you wouldn't be able to do that on the publicly shared version.
My question, Camille, when you share, I played around a little bit. There was an option in the settings to allow to click back to the app. Is that what you saw, where the view data? So if you go to the share public and then that cogs icon, allow user to navigate to the full app.
Okay.
Is that what allowed the button to show up?
Let's see. I'll do a hard
I
refresh.
couldn't figure out what that did, so I'm guessing.
This action is only.
So
why put the button there? Why
Right?
show me this at all? Airtable.
Yeah, that's so silly.
Oddly.
And what I've seen most people wanting for is the ability to embed one of the dashboard pages on a website. Like that's like what I think people would go crazy over. I didn't see any options to embed.
Well, there is. If you share publicly, and then if you go sorry, it's this thing down here. Now, is the dashboard layout compatible? I forgot, but it's listed in the help article. So I'll leave that to the viewers to discover for themselves.
Hopefully, yeah.
Because that would be exciting. I would be happy with that. If you've got a dashboard that you just want to show people charts and numbers, I mean, that could look nice.
Yeah, I would hope that on their roadmap is be able to share a group. With
Never mind.
pages.
Sorry,
it's not.
It's not.
Wow.
Okay. Interesting.
All right. Thank you, Camille, for sharing that. I think there is definitely more to come. I would hope so. So this is a first step in that direction. I think there's some cool use cases that they could get to, but still early in the game there. So, well, that concludes today's show. Thank you for joining us. Hope you can join us next week on episode 3, and we will see you then. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our sponsor, OnToAir Backups, automated backups for Airtable. We'll see you next time on the Built on Air podcast.